What's up, people? In this video we will be watching another one of Christina Randall, Unspoken Prison Rules Part 2. Something wrong with my audio, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to try and switch off the ambient noise in between the video clips, so hopefully this will work. Anyway, I like the last video of hers that I did. I like all these ex-con YouTubers. So if you guys have any more, let me know. This video is 20 minutes long, so we will be watching it. We'll be generous, give it 1.75 speed. Here we go.
You've lost your home, you've lost your car, you've lost your career, you're losing out on 5 to 7 years of with your children, Christmases, birthdays, 4th of Julys, Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance on hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know, y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? I hope you guys are having a great day. Make sure to let me know how you guys are doing because I love hearing from you guys. So today we are back at it again with part 2 of the Unspoken Prison Rules. If you're new here, hi, my name is Christina. Whenever I was 21 years old, I was sentenced to 3 years prison in the state of Florida. So the things I'm telling you guys, I know from experience. Y'all all really loved that video and was asking me for a part 2 and 3 and 4, and it's crazy how it works in there. It is literally being inside a prison is like living in a little world of forgotten people. I've said that a million times, and it's the truth. When you're in there, life is still going on. You've got it's literally like a little world. You've got a little store, you've got a church, you've got a library, you've got a chow hall, you've got microwaves. I get that question all the time. Yes, there are microwaves in the prisons that I was in, and it's literally like a little world in there. You go to work every day, that type of thing. The only thing is, it's not a fun little world. Okay, so when I'm telling you guys it's like a little world, it's not fun by any means. And being in prison, there are rules that are within the inmates, between inmate to inmate, that are unspoken rules. They're not written down. There's no prisoner to prisoner handbook, but these are the things that either one, when you get in there, or 2, you find out real quick. So let's get into part 2. I'll leave part 1 linked below if you haven't seen it. Go check it out. Okay, so the first unspoken rule that we're going to be talking about today in this video, part 2, is you do not leave your envelopes lying around within eyesight of people, to or from, unless they're a blank envelope and you don't care. You will see people, if they go up to the window and get mail, hide it. You will see them come sit it on their bed and leave it face down. And you want to know why that is? People will get your family members' addresses and write them or look them up or whatever, especially if you've got a man or a woman, a spouse that's sending you money and they know that they're sending you money. I can't tell you how many times I've seen girls get into arguments or fights because somebody else wrote their man within the prison. You think that can't happen? It not only can happen, it does happen. When you go to
That's kind of weird. I started watching this video and I was like, this kind of reminds me of the Army, right? Because she was talking about how it's like its own little world, and like the Army's also kind of its own little world where, whatever, like doesn't really count kind of in the outside world. But that seems to be where the similarity ends. Like, really, don't leave your envelopes out because like some shady girl will try and write your man and like get him to send her money. How devious. Yeah, I love this prison shit. It's so interesting. It's like, I don't know, I would never want to go to prison, obviously, but it sounds like it would be fun to experience, but for like a day or like a week or something, as long as I knew I wouldn't get killed. Maybe not a man's prison. Man's prison seems to be like a little bit more deadly, a lot more deadly. I knew this one girl when I was in my younger days, and while I knew her, she went to jail. She didn't go to prison. She went to jail. Stayed in county for 8 months, and she was a badass girl. She was like super badass, right? And like she was the type of girl who, when she went to jail, people would be scared of her. You know what I mean? Like, it's that whole joke about, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. That's kind of how she was. And she told me one day she beat some girl's ass in the shower. I would write her letters in jail. I was actually writing her letters. It's a long story, but whatever. Maybe I'll tell it at some point. I don't know why I thought of that. Anyway, none of her friends ever wrote me.
prison, you protect your addresses like a hawk. You're protecting your family, and that's what you are doing. So yeah, and if you got a sugar daddy baby, anybody that's been in prison, let me know if I'm lying down below. Tell me those girls won't try to steal your sugar daddy's address and start writing him. Start trying to tell him all the sweet type of nothings that they think he wants to hear, so they can try to get that coin about him. Yes, baby, that happens for real. Sure does. All right, so the second rule that we are going to be talking about today is you are not going to be talking about any cases that you've seen on the outs, something that you've read in the paper, or something that you've seen on the news. You do not want to talk about any cases. You want to know why? Because you never know whose friend or family member you are with in prison. Yeah, that's something you may not think about. You may be like, man, I heard about this ding-dong guy who robbed this store and tried to speed off. You may be sitting next to his cousin up in there, okay? You may be getting ready to start a war. Or that person may have children with a woman that you're in there with. And maybe she's not sitting next to you. Maybe she's friends with that person. And then she goes and says that she heard you talking about it. So that's something you really don't think about. When you are in prison and you see people breaking the law or you read a news article, chances are that people around you know those people because, a lot of times birds of a feather flock together. Criminals know other criminals. I used to get the newspaper sent to me in there just so I could read the arrest reports to see who I knew who got arrested. Isn't that sad? Back whenever I was, and if you do this, there's no judgment to you. I've been there. But the kind of life that I used to live, when I read the newspaper, the first thing I used to go to, I don't know if they still do this, but they did this back then. The first thing I would go to is the arrest records to see who I knew. Nowadays, if I look at that, I don't really see anybody that I know because the people that I roll with and stuff now are all pretty much straight edged.
So that's something that they do in Florida, right? There's a a subreddit on Reddit, right, called Florida Man, right? And in Florida, you have some law in Florida that legally they're allowed to post people who get arrested. You're allowed to post their identity or pictures of them or something in the newspaper about crimes they've committed. It's unique. It's either unique to Florida or Florida's one of the states that's just the most well known for it because it's one of the only states that does it in the South and I don't know, whatever it is, but it gives the perception that people in Florida are insane because they even have a sub about it. It's very popular. Florida man sues Popeyes for running out of chicken sandwiches, right? Florida woman arrested with stolen IDs, meth pipe, and no, it's not very interesting. Florida woman gets arrested after scratching Florida man for disliking how he talked to her friend. I don't know, some of these are really funny. Florida man threatens another Florida man with a machete for not flushing a toilet, right? These are all arrest records. So she said she went to jail in Florida. That lines up. But that's interesting. That's something that I guess you wouldn't think about, not talking about somebody who got arrested. In my extremely limited experience with the court system, let's call it, the few times where I've experienced that world, everybody was talking about all kinds of shit, right? Obviously we weren't she was in prison, so, I was not in prison. Everybody was like, oh, my friend did this, my friend did that, I heard this, I heard that, all over the place. But I guess once you get inside, there's a lot more rules and a lot more just things you have to think about because you're kind of trapped in there with those people. You can't really get out.
They do their thing, which, let's be real, the only people that I really hang out with is my kids and my husband, but you get what I'm saying. So yes, with that rule, you don't want to be talking about no cases when you up in prison. Okay. The third unspoken rule that we're going to talk about today is the old timers. Some people call them old heads. We call them old timers in there. And those are the people that have long sentences. You are always going to respect them. Okay. And their presence demands respect. You could be brand new coming into prison. And when you see people that are old timers in there, you can tell who the old timers are. This is their home. Okay. This is their actual home. They're not going anywhere. Okay. This is where they live. Their beds are set up certain ways. Usually they have different shoes than we have. They've gotten them different ways. If you guys have any questions, I want to do a Q&A, by the way, let me know below. I don't want to go off on too many tangents because y'all know how Grandma Christina is. I like to talk. But they have other items that maybe people that have been there 4 or 5 years don't have. Sometimes they have different bowls. Sometimes they have just different stuff, and they carry themselves in a much different way. Okay, so you're going to show respect to the old timers when you're in there. Yeah. The fourth unspoken rule.
So I was trying to think again. I was like, is this possibly similar to the Army? And kind of, right? Because no, I mean, it is and it isn't. Very loose connection, right? Who are the old timers in the Army are really high up officers. And they do have different stuff, but you could make the argument that in the Army it's because they deserve it, because their job is more important, whereas prisoners don't really have different jobs. I mean, maybe they do, but it's only because it's really just seniority. But that's really decided in between the prisoners, kind of, right? Old timers are in there. If people don't want to respect that person, that's their choice, whereas in the military, you have to respect it just because of the way it's structured. Although maybe it is similar. I'm not really sure. I haven't really spent enough time in either to be able to give you, tell you, really give my opinion on that. But yeah, I guess if that's your home, not like you can leave, not like you can move away, right? Reminds me of when I was in Australia the first time. I was living in a hostel. I was there for a month. And I had a job, and so it was kind of my home, right? Even though in most hostels, people are very transient. People come, people go. Maybe sometimes you're only in a place for a few days or a week, but some people are long-term people, and they do have different stuff, actually, now that I think about it. And at one point, something happened in the hostel that I viewed negatively, and it was so negative that I wanted to leave. But I was like, this is where I live now. This is my home, right? As temporary as it may be, I don't want to leave now. I still have another 2-3 months to go here. In my mind, I wanted to stay. So I didn't allow that to like push me out, and I actually had to stay. I didn't have to stay, but I chose to stay and deal with this extremely uncomfortable negative experience every single day. Get into that another time, but again, not like prison at all, just made me think of that.
That we're going to talk about today, which may be kind of common sense, but common sense ain't always common, is wash your hands when you're in the bathroom and when you leave the bathroom. I know you're going to think, Christina, come on, everybody washes their hands. No, they don't. And if you don't wash your hands, you best believe, at the very least, people are going to be gossiping about you and talking about you. That is at the least. I have seen girls get cursed out. I have seen all kinds of stuff about women not washing their hands in the bathroom. Okay, so, you may not be a hand washer at home. Maybe it's not a habit that you're in or whatever, but when you go into prison, you're going to learn to wash your hands, because if not, you're going to get chewed out, talked about, gossiped about, cussed out, all this, that, there, and the other. Because you got to remember, you are living in the same proximity as other women, okay? And sicknesses spread in there. Diseases spread in there. Staph and MRSA goes around in the prisons that I was in like you would not believe. So people get real crazy and defensive about washing their hands. All right, so the fifth
Interesting. I actually just did a video yesterday on how a certain probiotic called Bacillus subtilis, I want to say, will actually prevent MRSA from spreading. Fun fact. I never would have thought washing your hands is so important, but as a woman, I guess, women are generally cleaner than men anyway, just on average. I'm a complete mess. Not a great example, but women are generally cleaner. And I guess in prison that would be even more pronounced, that little fact, because it's not like you can like pop over to CVS and like get whatever you need to clean yourself up, right? If you get an infection or something, because you're living in living with some filthy human being in close quarters, that's a problem. So interesting, right? Prison stuff is so interesting.
Unspoken rule that we're going to be talking about today is don't offer nobody food with your hands. Y'all are going to say, Christina, come on now, we know this. That's just, no, literally, if you've made fudge and somebody asks you for a piece, or if you want to give somebody a piece, you don't reach down in there and grab and hand that fudge to them, unless they're like your best friend in there and y'all are close like that, or, maybe your girlfriend or your significant other, whatever like that. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I have literally seen, and I can think about this specific moment in my head where this chick was giving another girl, another woman, a piece of fudge, and she reached out and handed it to her, and the woman slapped it out of her hand and cussed her out. You're naked behind. Please, if you offer somebody food in there, just hand them the bowl, okay? Just give them a spoon and tell them to cut their own piece of burrito off. Don't be handing it to them with your hands, okay? Even rubbing your nose with and scratching your butt with. People don't like that in there, okay? These 6.
Interesting. I guess one similarity to the military is that you're always sharing food, right? Always share food. I wasn't in the military with a bunch of girls. We were a bunch of dudes, and we did not. I guess people wash their hands. They actually would tell us to wash our hands before every meal, at least in basic and advanced training. They would say, we would line up, wait to go in and like eat our food, and then our commanders would say, okay, they'd inspect or pretend to inspect us at least. I thought they were inspecting us in the beginning, but now I realize they were just kind of like, it's like when a real estate agent goes to inspect a house, like opens like the closet door and like looks at the garbage disposal. Is he really interested in that? Probably not. More interested, arguably, in like the cash flow potential of the house, not like does the door open. But they would always tell us. They would say, "Okay, go wash your hands." They wouldn't say go eat. They would say go wash your hands, and then it was just like that was the signal to go eat, was to say go wash your hands. We'd go wash your hands, and then everyone, that was like the cue to go in and start eating. But in the civilian world, you don't really think about that, I guess. I don't think about that. Like, I should probably wash my hands a lot more than I do now that I'm like conscious of this. Like, isn't that? I don't want to touch myself now. Although my nose itches. Fuck. Yeah. Okay.
Unspoken rule in prison is cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you've heard me talk about this before, that I have seen women get in fist fights about people coughing or sneezing and not covering their mouth or their nose or whatever with their hands and then washing their hands afterwards. Because like I said just a few seconds ago, that diseases and sicknesses and illnesses and colds and flus and all that stuff spreads like wildfire when you're in prison, because you're all in one big dorm. Our prisons were open bay dorms. They weren't cells, and there's no air conditioner, and all you got is a bunch of fans in there blowing your cough and your sneeze around in circles. And we don't want to be sick in there. Ain't nobody making you soup and chicken noodle soup and doctoring warming you up. You know, there's no hubby or no wife bringing you a nice heating pad or a cold rag on your head, or you can stay in from work and lay around and watch TV all day while you feel better. No, not when you're in prison. When you're in prison, you have to get your butt up and go to work and go rake all day, or go out on the road cruise, or go cook, or whatever you got to do. And nobody wants to be sick. There's no NyQuil making you feel better. There's none of that in there. So if you don't cover your hands when you sneeze or when you cough, you just make it something, okay? You make it something.
Interesting. I think what I like about these ex-con YouTubers is that in prison there's so much discipline that doesn't exist in the real world that it just kind of, it makes them more responsible or more mature or more, I don't know, it does something to their values, I think, as a human being. When you have extended periods of, let's call it what it is, forced discipline, similar to the military, and prison seems to be a much more extreme example, because like you're kind of there against your will, and there's a lot less. There, I guess, is a hierarchy, but it's not as clear as the military, or maybe it is. I don't know, but it's not like you don't have like two like stripes on your arm that show that everybody else. Like it's maybe just more implied, and a lot less rules, I guess, in prison, or more. I guess you could make that argument. I don't really know, but one thing that I thought of when I watched that is that, you know, I spent 2 months in Japan before I was in Bangkok just now, and one thing that I noticed about Japanese people, every time they sneeze, they cover their mouth with their hand. They sneeze into their hand, which like I think is disgusting. Am I muted right now? I really hope I'm not muted. Anyway, whatever. They sneeze into their hand, so they get their sneeze all over their hand, and sometimes they sneeze multiple times, and then they just like, they don't go wash their hands immediately, right? Whereas like if I sneeze, I turn my head and I sneeze into my shoulder, right? Which in my opinion is much better, right? Because like it's not on my hand, it's on my shoulder. Who's gonna, like, when's the last time you touched somebody with your shoulder? Ever, right? I never sneeze into my hand, rarely. I'll always turn my head and sneeze into my shoulder. And so now I notice this is very common in Asia. At least they cover their mouth with something, right? But then it's all on their hand. It's disgusting. Anytime I see the point is that anytime I watch somebody sneeze and cover it with their hand, it grosses me out. Even though I know, I guess it's good that at least they cover their hand, right? And they're just not like spraying it everywhere. I don't know.
The seventh unspoken rule that we're going to talk about today is a very serious one. And please, which nobody ever go to prison. Please don't. Do not go into prison complaining about how much time you have left. Yes, this does happen. Every now and then you'll get somebody, you know, like a woman that's green, and you guys know I've explained to you before what green is. Green is somebody that pretty much kind of just doesn't have any street smarts, okay? They could be incredibly brilliant, book smarts, all kinds of degrees, but has no street smarts, so they're not picking up on signals and stuff like that. You know, somebody that maybe did a white-collar crime, never been in trouble before a day in their life, you know, and ends up in prison, and they get 5 years, and they're in there crying and boo-hooing and complaining every day about having 5 whole years. That will get you in trouble in prison, okay? There are women that are going to be in there that's got 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and your little 5 years is a long weekend to them. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear you complaining about having 7 years away from your children. Although to you, it's heartbreaking, right? Like 5 years, you've lost your home, you've lost your car, you've lost your career, you're losing out on 5 to 7 years with your children, 5 to 7 Christmases, birthdays, you know, 4th of Julys, you know, first days of school, last days of school, first boyfriends, first driver's license. You're missing out on all those moments, and that's heartbreaking, and it's devastating to go through. But you got to remember, there's always going to be somebody in there that has twice as long as you, if not 3, 4 times as long as you, and they don't appreciate that. And not only can that get you in trouble with them as far as, you know, maybe getting, you know, shunned in there, possibly a fight, but sometimes women like that will be very vindictive, and they'll start a fight with you, or they'll set you up. They'll plant something in your bed or in your locker that's severe contraband. So you go to the hole, and so you lose game time. So you have to stay longer. So don't do that. Come in, just keep your mouth shut and do your time. Don't complain about how much time you have, okay?
So interesting is what I said. Got to get used to like muting myself. The few people who I've met who have been to prison or jail, or I guess prison, really, they say the same thing. They say just like shut your mouth and do your time, and that's really kind of what everybody wants to do, right? That's, I guess, the like, I don't want to say the goal, you know, but and assuming again you don't have a sentence that will expire after you die, right? You're not in for life, or you know, you're like whatever 26 and you have an 80-year sentence or something like that. Like, probably not gonna see the outside. Just like shut your mouth. Don't cause problems, do your time, and then get out, right? Complaining about how much time you have left, again, this seems like one of these things that like you might not think would be so bad, right? Like, I mean, if I think about it, fine, I understand like why somebody who's in for a long time wouldn't want to hear you talking about your 5-year sentence or 7-year sentence when they're going to be in there for 30 years. Obvious, makes sense. But maybe you wouldn't realize that in the beginning, and you might go in and, because I mean, I don't know, I complain all the time. I feel like Like I'll complain about things that are stupid when I realize, and consciously I know that people have it much harder than me. What comes to mind right now is like sometimes I'll complain about money. You know, right now I've got to my name, whatever, I don't have a lot of money, I've got a couple grand, let's say, in the bank. There's people in this country and the countries that I've been in recently who make $300 a month. That's their salary. They don't have a couple grand in the bank. So like, for me to complain about that, it's like, do you understand, like compared to most other people, you've got it actually very good. So, interesting.
The 8th unspoken rule that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm sure some of you guys have had this at your workplace or at school, don't come up to somebody in a conversation and say, hey, what y'all talking about? Hey, what's that? What was that? What y'all talking about? Don't do that. People don't like that. People don't like you in their business like that. Y'all know, y'all been at work whispering with your friends, telling a story, and then you got that one person that wants to know everything up there. What y'all saying? Or even your kids. Lord knows my son, my little baby is always asking me and his dad, what are y'all talking about? 9 times out of 10, you know, we'll tell him what we're talking about, but every now and then it's an adult conversation, and I have to tell him, Tootie, this is a mommy and daddy conversation. We're talking about adult things. This is for us to talk about, you know, so we finish our conversation somewhere else. But in prison, you don't want to do that. And sometimes you may hear something you don't want to hear, and now you've just become an accomplice to something. So mind your business. I've told y'all a million times, just keep it moving, mind your business. Okay, so the
God, so many rules. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, how many rules are there in prison? Like, how many rules do you have in your actual life, really? Like, don't hit people. Don't, like, yell at people. Don't steal. Like, the 10 Commandments, basically. But, oh my God, now, like, you're not allowed to butt into other people's conversations. Like, you have to understand that in the real world, you are so free. Like, you're actually free, right? You can, like, theoretically, right? Even though it might not be socially acceptable or might not be socially acceptable to let's say approach a group of people and ask them what they're talking about, you can do it without having to worry that you're gonna get shanked, you know what I mean? Or that like somebody's gonna plant some cocaine in your bed and like you'll go to solitary confinement, right? You don't have to worry about that. Sure, it might be awkward and they might kind of not want you there and they might look at you weird and make you feel uncomfortable, or even maybe tell you to fuck off, right? Or tell you to leave nicely. But is that really so bad? But meanwhile, in prison, there's all these like special rules that you have to follow, all these things you have to do, you know, all this stuff regarding seniority. That's, you know, I think the like constant vigilance of making sure you're following the rules, that must, plus the responsibility, you have to wake up at a certain time. You have like probably responsibilities to other inmates as well, like the higher people than you in the hierarchy, whatever it is. It turns people into very responsible adults, strangely enough, right? Like, which I guess is the goal of prison, is to do that, right? To rehabilitate them through discipline, which is what it seems like. Or at least that's the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of these prisoners, or these YouTubers at least, is that they have become rehabilitated through discipline. Not necessarily through being apart from society, but by having so many rules that they have to follow that when they get out, they naturally are just more attracted to that disciplined lifestyle. Some of them get back into crime, obviously, like, what can you do? Like, you know, it's life, right? Can't fix everybody. But, you know, I would like to think, maybe I'm too optimistic, but the additional discipline of living in prison helps them in the outside world, seems to, at least from the ones that I've seen on YouTube.
The 9th unspoken rule that we're going to talk about today, that's inside of prison, is a courtesy flush. What is a courtesy flush? Well, actually, if you guys have watched Jessica Kent, shout out to my girl Jessica Kent here on YouTube. I love her so much. I will leave her channel linked below. She's talked about this before, and I know y'all are going to tear me up in the comments about wasting water, but this is what it is in prison. A courtesy flush, meaning when you go poo, soon as you drop, you flush. Soon as you drop, you flush. Maybe TMI, but y'all know how we do it over here. We keep it 100 at all times. And the reason for that is when you are in the bathrooms in prison, in the prisons that I've been in, and I've heard it like this just about everywhere too. The 2 prisons that I was in, it's just one room with a bunch of toilets, okay? And in between each toilet is a little brick wall that goes up to right about here, okay? It doesn't cover your face, doesn't cover nothing, but you know, you're literally talking to the person next to you saying, hey, hand me some toilet paper. You know, y'all can have full-on conversations, eye contact while you're both going poo. So, you know, there's people that are coming in there brushing their teeth or washing their hands or taking showers, and they don't want to smell you, okay, while you sit in there and blow it up for 30 or 45 minutes and read a letter, okay? You need a courtesy flush because you might just get cursed out. Okay, so
Interesting, I guess. You know, again, like, as I've said many times, I've never been to prison. The closest thing is really the military, which is kind of like serving a sentence in a way, right? Obviously you have, well, I don't say obviously you have more freedoms. You definitely, you do have more freedoms, but, and less discipline, strangely, but there are some similarities. And, you know, we had stalls that we could go poo in, right? We didn't have to, like, wasn't quite like that. But you shower with other people, right? You shower naked, like with other men, like in your squad or in your company. Like you don't have like private shower stalls. I don't know, maybe some militaries do, but most of the time, and like when I think about it, like how hard is it to like put a curtain on the stall, right, for like a little bit of privacy? But it's almost like they don't want to do that, right? Like again, they could have had just all the toilets there, you take a shit in front of other people, right? But they didn't. They had that closed off. So like, why wouldn't they do the same with showers? I don't know. Save money, maybe. Whatever. Strange. Very strange. I mean, not strange. I get it. I understand why. Like, you go to the toilet. You have like additional privacy. Maybe you put something. You hide something, or whatever. Do a line. I don't really know what the rationale is, but courtesy flush. I get that. I understand that. You don't want people. It's really, I guess, what prison comes down to is just kind of having respect for other people, really, because it's kind of like living in a hostel almost, in that like you are in a room with 8, 9, 10 other people, and you don't know these people, they don't know you, so like you have to kind of go a little bit further to make, like you're not in your room by yourself, you can throw your shit everywhere and like whatever, make noises and release bodily fluids and gases or whatever. Anyway, you know what I mean. You have to respect the other people in there. So, interesting.
The 10th unspoken rule about being in prison is do not, please, for the love of God, do not piss off the kitchen staff. I think you can understand why this is a thing. That's basically like going through a drive-thru and making the people mad, that's back behind the window, or the people that's making your food, or going to a restaurant and like cursing out the cook or whatever. Y'all have probably heard horror stories, okay? And if you want to know, yes, I have worked in food service. I have personally never done that. I don't care how rude somebody is to me. I just could never do that. But it happens. I mean, you guys have seen news articles of people doing things to people's food, and in prison it is no different, okay? I've actually had one of y'all just recently leave me a comment. She left me a comment below and said that there was a chick that was always mean to her, so she used to give her the tiniest piece of coffee cake, and y'all know about the coffee cake in prison, okay? The coffee cake can start a riot. The coffee cake is everything in prison. So for her to give her a little tiny piece of coffee cake on coffee cake day, she was giving her one with that. So yes, you do not want to make the kitchen staff mad. Multiple reasons. They can give you little pieces of food, just like that story, or they can do other things to your food that you don't, trust me, you don't want done. The food already looks like slop. If somebody does something nasty to your food, you're not gonna be able to tell the difference anyways, because it already looks like slop. So trust me, be nice to the kitchen staff. The 11th rule.
Damn, I'm stopping this video way too much. But basically, I've worked in many restaurants, and at one that I used to work in, I was like 20 years old. I was not. I had some hobbies that were not particularly productive, right? And whatever, anyway, I used to smoke a lot of weed and do some other stuff too. And my job was like kind of like a runner, sort of, but a runner host kind of thing. It was a weird position that they had there. I'd never seen it at any other restaurant. But I had to like go like prepare takeout orders, and like it was kind of like I would fill in gaps for whoever needed help, really. So I went into the kitchen to do something, and like I was high, or like I had like taken a Xanax or something, and I made a mistake that was an obvious mistake to everybody around me. And there was a busboy in there, nice guy, most people who work in restaurants are generally nice people. It's like generally not a lot of big egos in restaurant work. But anyway, he said something to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, you're smoking a little too much, huh?" And when you take Xanax, and if you've ever taken Xanax, like it gives you a very bad temper sometimes. Like you just go from zero to like super pissed off like instantly. And I said something to him. I was like, I don't know if I said shut the fuck up. If I was like, I said something really mean to him undeservedly. And he was a busboy, right? But he was Mexican. The entire kitchen staff was Mexican, all the cooks and everything. And that day when I ordered my food, they gave me like a half portion of what they would normally give me. When they would normally hook me up, give me like the fattest, I always get a salad. They had really good salads there. Give me like a fat chicken salad, like all this food. But this time they filled it like halfway. And I was like, it's like, damn, I probably fucked up. I quit like a day later anyway for unrelated reasons. But yeah, don't piss off the kitchen staff.
What we're gonna talk about today is do not make the canteen worker mad. Yes, you do not want to make the canteen worker mad. There's usually like one canteen worker, and that is her job. That's what she does, is she sits into the little canteen area thingy, the little canteen store. Canteen store, if you guys don't know, is kind of like commissary, or it's like the little store on the compound that you can buy if your family or a loved one or somebody sends you money. You can buy snacks from, like candy bars and chips and stuff like that. And it's only open certain times of the week. But if you make her mad, you come up to that window, boop, she can close it and say, I need to go on break, or I need to go to the bathroom. I've seen her do that before, the one that I was at. This one woman and her got into a beef, and every time she got up to the line up there, boop, got to go to the bathroom. Either one, make her wait a little bit longer, or she can go into the bathroom and act like her stomach's killing her and stay in there until the yard shuts down. You know, so they've got a lot of power in there. They can do different things. They can find out what your favorite snacks are, and when you come up to the window, they can hide all of those and say that they're out, and then sell those same snacks to the person behind you. And then what are you gonna do about it? You gonna complain? Okay, well, she can say, oh, I just opened a box, or I just found those. Then you gotta go get back in the end of the line and be in line for another 2 hours to get back up there to get that bag of chips that you wanted. So yeah, it happens. And that's another reason why you guys ask me, you say, is male prison worse than female's prison? I don't think it's worse. I think it's different, okay? Male's prison, they're just gonna ask you, let's do this, let's throw down, whatever. Women's prison, women think things through, right? Women can be, you know, vindictive sometimes. Men can too be. I'm not saying it's only men, but you know, women, we typically think 10 steps ahead of the game, right? So it just operates a little bit differently in the women's prison than the men's. All right, so the next unspoken.
Yeah, I'm gonna cast my vote and say that men's prison is probably worse. Not like it's a competition or anything. I wouldn't want to be locked up with a bunch of women either, but I'd rather be locked up with a bunch of vindictive women who plan 3 steps ahead than a bunch of normally violent men who will like gouge out your eyes and knock out all your teeth over, you know, because you wanted to like, or because you like said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing. Fine, I'm exaggerating. I know it's not exactly like that, but like. Yeah, it just seems like, you know, plus like, let's just be practical. Like, men are bigger and stronger, you know? I'd rather be like locked up with a bunch of comparatively weaker physically women than like big roided out dudes who, you know, have extremely strict rules for how they must be respected at all times. So yeah, as far as like pissing off the convenience store worker, I don't know. I can't relate to that, I guess. I don't know.
The rule about being in prison is don't pick on the weak people, okay? That is not going to gain you any respect in prison, okay? If you're picking on an elderly person, believe it or not, people are going to stand up for the elderly person, and they should. You know, I definitely didn't play none of that. You know, don't be walking by somebody on a walker and bumping them and stuff. No, and that's not typically going to happen. There's just like a certain respect for elderly people unless you have hurt a child or something like that. Which there are people in there like that. I've spoke to you guys about that before. If you've done something like that, there is no respect for you. Your time is going to be hard. But, you know, for the majority, maybe, you know, they got in trouble for, you know, whatever little petty thing and they're in there. Or, you know, people that are just honestly really weak and timid or whatever, you know, you're probably going to get tested. They're probably going to skip you in line. But just to pick on you, you know, you're not going to gain any respect from that. So don't pick on the weak people. It don't make you look cool in the free world or in prison. All right, my friends, I hope.
Interesting. Don't pick on the weak or elderly. Elderly, okay, fine. I understand that. Respect your elders, that kind of thing. I guess that carries over in prison as well. But not picking on weak people. That's interesting. I always was under the impression that in, you know, you like, what's the whole joke? Like, oh, you know, after I did the Wes Watson video, people wrote on a lot of dislikes on that video. Fine. But people were like, oh, if you were in prison, you'd be somebody's bitch. Like, you better hope you never go to prison because you're like, you know, I can't say these words, unfortunately, because I don't want whatever derogatory terms. But yeah, like, and again, I don't think I look like a weak person, right? Like, but I would just assume it just seems strange that the weak would not get picked on in prison. I guess to leave them alone, maybe it's like or to pick on them is dishonorable in some way. That makes sense. Okay.
That you guys liked this video. Are you guys still into these? Do you want to hear a part 3? Because literally when I was thinking about these rules, I just spit them out and I know that I can keep going because that's the way it works in prison with like prison politics and stuff. I told you guys that, you know, the prisoners pretty much run the compound. I think you're going to hear that from just about anybody that's been in prison, no matter where they're at in the US. So like there are these just kind of rules and things that we expect from each other. So if you guys want to hear more, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. I love you guys so much. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for believing in me and supporting me and watching my videos. Like I absolutely love doing this and I love hearing from y'all and reading your comments and talking back and forth with y'all. I just want you guys to know that I just appreciate y'all. So thank you.
You know what I could do? Like what this gave me an idea. I was thinking like, okay, I was like, oh, it kind of sucks that I've never been in prison. I mean, fine, obviously it doesn't, but like, look at all this cool shit she has to talk about, right? But I was just thinking like, I could talk about stuff like this too. I could do unspoken military army rules, right? And then I could make up 10 things that like you have to do in the army that like nobody would think of. I take it for granted, you know, but, right? Stuff like that. Like I could basically map over all of their, you know, what you eat in the army. Or, I mean, honestly, it's been 11 years since I've gotten out. So like maybe dating myself a little bit or sales or something, but that's just so off brand for what my channel is about. Like I barely mentioned sales at all. I don't think I've ever done a video on sales on this channel. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I will. Maybe they'll do well. I don't really know. Anyway, if you got this far, thank you. Good for watching. Should I, if you got this far, I'll ask you a question. Should I do more videos that are less like video breakdowns like this, reaction videos, and just more talking to the camera and like giving my experience about things? A couple of people have asked me to do that. It's a fair request. Should I do that? Because I have stuff I could talk about also, plenty of things. But I wonder, is that more interesting than doing these reaction videos? So whatever you think, let me know, leave me a comment. I like this girl, Christina Randall. She's pretty hot. She's way hotter than she was before she went into prison. Anyway, you guys got any recommendations for me? Let me know. Peace.